So anyways, in this segment we're going to talk about international films, and Chuck is the expert here.
Yeah, expert. I watch the movies.
Chuck is going to talk about his top 5 picks for international horror films.
So this is my first top 5. I will say we actually have no rhyme or reason for our top 5. It's just literally we watched 5 of something, and here's the 5.
There's no order of importance.
No.
So what I'll say, I did top 5 international horror films. It's not the only 5 I've ever watched, but and I will say I liked all of them. So even at number 5, this is still a movie I would recommend. But the first one I actually have on the list, I'd heard a lot about it. I finally got around to watching it. Train to Busan.
Great movie.
It is actually. It's a great movie. We were talking a little earlier. One reason I would rate it a little bit lower is that they cheated a little bit. They have it's a zombie movie, and they created their own rules, and they bent the rules into their own way, which is good. When you create sci-fi and fantasy, whatever rules you create, you should play by. So I felt like they cheated a little bit with the rules to make a good narrative, but man, it is a good narrative, and Sang Hua, the zombie puncher, is just one of my favorite characters of any horror movie ever.
I love that, Zombie Puncher.
The Zombie Puncher. It is.
Did you
he's
see
a
it?
great character.
I just love the idea of a Zombie Puncher.
So Kevin's going to watch Train to Busan tonight.
Just for the Zombie Puncher,
which
yeah.
is on Netflix.
I may watch it right now after we get done drinking.
It is on Netflix. Actually, most of these are on streaming services, so you should watch it. Train to Busan, if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. It's a fun zombie flick. I'm not even a big zombie fan. Most zombie movies I'll pass on. This was a very good one. It had some very memorable characters. Excellent film. Number 4 would be The Ring, in terms of the original Japanese movie The Ring. I watched this years ago. It's excellent. I will say I watched the American one first. I actually preferred the American one, which some people will be scream over, but the American one was just better produced. Right. But the Japanese one is effective, and maybe some of the effect was lost because I had seen the American one, which might be why it's number 4 and not number 1. But it's still an excellent film. There's a reason that this movie set off the whole J-horror, Japanese horror trend in U.S. cinemas.
The Japanese can make young girls scarier than hell.
And that character...
And then, buy panties.
Yeah.
And vending machines.
Yeah, it's Japan.
You ever heard about that?
Where apparently you can buy panties and vending machines. But continue.
But there's a
this is into the abyss, folks.
Yeah.
So
and I'm not even centered in this. I should just sit on Tom's lap.
Oh.
So but
that's a different kind of video on time.
But there's a reason that the character is actually memorable now, going on 20 years later, or even 20 years later. This movie's been around. So excellent film, The Ring. Number 3 is the newest one. I had heard it recommended. I actually watched it last night. The Hole in the Ground. This is an Irish horror film. Okay. Oh. It's excellent. This actually might be the most atmospheric one on the list. Okay. It's haunting. It gets you on the edge of your seat, and you just stay there for the whole film. It followed a lot of tropes and stuff like that. It was another creepy kid movie, but it's really well done. The acting is phenomenal. Both the child and the mother in there. In this one, the mother brings her. They've moved into a house. They're out on their own. And the child just seems different. She's convinced that it's not her child, and she's caught in this "what do I do now" situation. Okay. There were some things that directing and script questions I had that kind of kept it down at number 3. But in terms of atmosphere, this might be the best one on the list. Okay. This is very good, highly recommended. Number 2 is the Babadook. This one has become quite popular. Babadook has become an internet meme as well. So. This one, I don't know if I have to introduce this one too much, but this is another mother and child stressful situation, living on their own. This one it gets into your head, and you're not quite sure where it's going. This one is also extremely atmospheric, but it keeps you guessing where the story goes. Is it a real monster? Is it all in their head type situation? This one's down, I think it was out of Australia, I'm pretty sure. But another international horror film, excellent, highly recommended. Gets into the stress of being a single mother, and it does a great job of representing that. And then number 1 on my list is The Orphanage, which is I believe, Spanish film. It's J.A. Bayona was the director. I watched this one a number of years ago. I will say, this movie would have been lower on my list if you go based on the first main part of the film. But then you hit the twist, and this twist just jabbed me in the gut and twisted the knife more than any other movie I've ever seen. Like, when it comes to a horror twist that punches you square in the face, I don't know that anyone has ever hit me this hard. So it's a family moves out into an old orphanage. It's a ghost story. Again, it's very psychological. Are they ghosts? Is it all in her head? It's very atmospheric. Maybe not as much as the two previous ones on the list, but then it hits the twist on the film, and you see what's been going on, and oh my goodness, it hits hard. It gets you right in the feels. The Orphanage, it sticks with me. I saw this one years ago, and when I try to think back on horror movies that have punched me in the emotions, this is the one that sticks out in my mind. So, highly recommend The Orphanage. Good ghost movie that hits hard.
I'm gonna jack.
You get punched a lot, don't you?
So I'm gonna jack on his film. So The Babadook is an excellent film. I'm gonna say this from my perspective. Anyone who has a child who's on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, I actually had a very hard time watching this film myself.
I was going to say, I actually didn't recommend the movie to you just because I didn't know how hard it would be to watch.
It was hard to watch because I know there are people on Facebook who are claiming the boy was annoying and things like that and yada, yada, yada. And for me, the horror came from the fact of raising our son who's on the autism spectrum. It takes both my wife and I to do that together, and the only way is we've been successful with that is because we're a team. In The Babadook, you have a single mother who's literally at her wit's end, and watching this movie, all I could do was put myself into her shoes and be like, yeah, I could see that being my life. That's the I don't know if I want to call that a trigger warning. It made it a very effective film. I'm not saying it was a bad film, it was a good film, but that's where I found the horror, was being the parent of a kid on the spectrum. And I don't know if they ever mentioned the kid being autistic or ADHD.
I saw a couple years ago.
But he's clearly on the spectrum somewhere. So, yeah.
And it's, in terms of these five, and if I were to pick the one based on how well it's produced, this might be the number one on the list. It's so well made.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to jack on this one too. I mean, that really sounds bad, doesn't it? Anyways.
I just realized how bad that sounds.
Going back to the Train to Busan, I noticed that South Korean horror movies have really kicked up, and I am of the belief that the reason why they've been doing so well is they've been living a horror story for over 60 years now, with they're still technically at war with North Korea.
I'm going blank on it, but there's actually a really good South Korean horror movie with an aquatic monster. I'm trying to remember what it is. Sorry, folks. I'm terrible.
We don't want to go on a tangent, but it's funny that you picked that up because my students, obviously during October, I assign them horror because why not. And one of the articles they have to read is an article that talks about horror for us, the movies and the books that we read here in a first world country, and then how the horror stories in third world countries are very different, because you could literally say that in many of those countries they're already living a world of horror.
Oh yeah.
While we're living in relative ease here in the U.S.
And
it's a sidebar. I don't want to go on a rant on that.
Thank God.
But I'm actually interested in this. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, he will keep talking though.
Yes, and I will too.
Anyways,
I will both.
I'm gonna try my best to avoid giving away anything, but that the main characters is this workaholic father. He's divorced from his wife. He's got, a certain period of custody with his daughter. They've grown apart, and I like how he finally had to step up to be a father, to be a man, to save his daughter in this apocalypse on a train. Also,
and it's a genuine relationship. The daughter is phenomenal in that movie.
Oh yeah, she is.
She's
and then
very good.
The zombie puncher, as we call him. It was one thing I found out is some people were making a lot of fun of him, saying he was fat, but this guy was actually in real life he's trained in several martial arts.
Yeah.
And you can just tell if you ever came across him, you don't want to take him off. But he was really good in it too. It actually made you care about the characters.
I wouldn't call him fat. He's just beefy. He's a strong dude, and he knows how to throw punches.
And he did a smart thing in a zombie genre, putting magazines on his forearm so they wouldn't bite him.
Yep.
Wow. He was something smart.
There's some really clever stuff in there. They did a good job of bringing some new ideas into the zombie genre.
Anyway, those are your international. Where are those streaming, by the way?
I forgot to write down that list, but I can tell you.
They're all over the place.
Yeah, Train to Busan is on Netflix right now. I can tell you The Hole in the Ground is on Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime
Hole in
Video.
the Ground is also on Netflix too, I believe.
Possibly, okay.
Yeah.
I have not checked recently which ones are on there, but I've seen all 5 of these movies popping up here and there on the various streaming services. Go check them out. You should be able to get, I know at least 2 of them right now, if not 3 or 4 of them available on streaming services for free.
Okay. All right.